Ecology recap from the readings of 3.3.3. So on this slide, it's just wanted to show you a food chain pyramid or food web pyramid and show that there are 6 different trophic levels, starting from the bottom, primary producers, all the way to the very top carnivores, known as an apex carnivore. In this case, it's a shark or a dolphin. One of the things I wanted to address with this slide is just referring to this idea of that heat is lost over here on the left hand side. And so every time something gets eaten, we always have heat that leaves the system. It's not destroyed, it just leaves the system. Another thing I wanted to address too is on the right hand side, these decomposers at any given level, trophic level 1 through 6, something can die. It needs to get broken down by decomposers such as bacteria, or could be fungus, or it could be lots of different things. I want to talk about energy pyramid, and these are the terms that the book uses. We have primary producers on the bottom, primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers. So as I mentioned before, at each one of these levels, heat is lost or leaves the system. And therefore, even though this flower has 10,000 joules of energy, when the grasshopper consumes the flower, it doesn't get all 10,000 joules, it only gets 1,000 joules. When the mouse eats the grasshopper, the mouse only gets 100 joules. When the mouse gets eaten by the hawk only gets 10 joules. This is known as the 10% rule, which means that the organism that eats the organism only gets 10% of the energy that the original organism had. So if I were to compare the grasshopper's energy compared to the hawk's, each one of these is 10%. So 10%, 10%, or roughly the hawk has only 1% of the energy that the grasshopper did. So I just also want to review that omnivores can sometimes be in more than one trophic level. For example, this mouse here is shown eating a grasshopper. So it's eating meat or an animal, but we know that mice can also eat berries and fruit. So this mouse could actually be moved down to this level. Could be a primary consumer if it's eating nuts or berries, or it could be a secondary consumer like it is right now if it is eating the grasshopper. Want to address a pyramid of biomass. So biomass is a measure of the amount of dry mass per unit of area found in each trophic level. For example, it might be measured in grams per meter squared. And what we see on land is the order of food chain and food web to be stable if there needs to be a greater amount of biomass in the producers. So there needs to be more biomass here than there is in the consumers. So basically they're saying the amount of sparrowhawks we have in this ecosystem, the mass is significantly less, as you can see it's not as big, than the amount of mass that the oak trees have, all the oak trees in the system. So for example, if the sparrowhawk had a mass of, I don't know, 10 kilograms per meter squared, this oak tree might be something like around, I don't know, 10,000 kilograms per meter squared. Sometimes in aquatic systems, we actually see the biomass pyramid inverted because the total weight of producers is actually less than the weight of consumers. And so how can that be? How could I have less producers in mass than consumers? That you would think they would all get eaten up and then there would be no more producers. So what happens is that on land, the producers have a longer lifespan in comparison to aquatic. In aquatic, they actually don't have a very long lifespan, so they die right away. But in order to make up for that short lifespan, aquatic producers reproduce at a much higher rate. And so therefore, they can still maintain consumption. But we typically will refer to the regular pyramid for biomass, not the aquatic inverted system. Pyramid of numbers. So this is just showing the actual numbers. So there's many more, numbers of clover in an ecosystem versus the number of snails versus the number of thrush versus a sparrowhawk. It's maybe only a couple. But sometimes the pyramid of numbers does not always actually look like an actual pyramid, which is kind of interesting. So in this case, it's kind of like the shape of it is not a pyramid, typical pyramid shape, because there's not a lot of rabbits, but all those rabbits have lots of fleas on them. So there's many more fleas than there are rabbits. So pyramid of numbers does not always fit the typical pyramid shape. Here's another one. Again, an oak tree. One oak tree might have a lot of insects on it, and a lot of those insects are then eaten by woodpeckers. So, again, one oak tree, the pyramid of numbers does not look like a typical pyramid.